Rajeev, just comment to us, if you would, on President Trump's comments that we'll have a vaccine by the end of the year. Obviously, Takeda is looking also, just like many other companies, to get into the vaccine area for COVID-19. But, I mean, from your perspective, is it even a possibility that we'll have a workable one in a lot of doses by the end of the year?
Thanks, Lonnie. It is possible, but it's going to be extraordinarily ambitious and challenging. President Trump is right that it typically takes many, many years to produce a vaccine. I would say that for many vaccines, it's taken 10, 15 years or longer. So to compress that to the stated 12 to 18-month goal, at least stated by the U.S., is in and of itself extraordinary. But to set a target of having meaningful quantities of vaccine by the end of this calendar year is really, really extremely ambitious. I don't think anybody can guarantee that this will happen, but what I can say is that the industry is doing its very best, as well as the regulatory authorities and the scientific community, to make that happen.
And I know Takeda is looking to try to develop some kind of vaccine, maybe in partnership with others as well. You also have a plasma business that you're going to direct towards COVID-19 treatments. So explain to us why you would do that, given that there are so many efforts at vaccines out there and they're not at all guaranteed to make money for the company that does find one.
Yeah, that's right. So this is the reason that we decided not to start our own vaccine development program. There are over 100 companies, as we understand it, and entities that have announced vaccine development programs. And so we felt that our role is best to partner with one of these companies that have shown that their vaccine is safe and works, and then bring the manufacturing of that vaccine into our Japan manufacturing facility, where we have a lot of experience in making vaccines for the Japanese population. And so we'd like to do that both for Japan as well as countries outside of Japan. That's our vaccine effort. Now, on plasma, it's a very different story, because we are one of the largest plasma product manufacturers in the world. And what we decided to do early on is to take this capability to produce a plasma formulation that has very high antibodies against the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is the one that causes COVID. What we're effectively proposing to do is to give people who have COVID illness access to the antibodies that their bodies won't develop for 2 weeks or longer. So it's essentially taking a loan on those antibodies so that you can use them to treat the illness today, in hopes that it will be less severe, not last as long, and ultimately that you'll go home more quickly. This is still in development. We do hope that we will have the necessary data to show efficacy and supplies on an ambitious timeline by the end of this calendar year.
Rajeev, it's Guy. Can I just kind of pick up on that? I'm really curious. How scalable is that, given the fact that it relies on people with the antibodies effectively to harvest those from them, then concentrate them into sufficient kind of dosages that you can then kind of give people that have it that are going to be effective? On what kind of scale can this be done?
Great question, Guy. This is critically dependent upon having access to enough people who have recovered successfully from COVID illness and are willing to donate plasma. So you need to have large numbers of people donating in order to treat large numbers of patients. The unfortunate circumstance with the pandemic is that every day more and more people are getting infected, so the pool of potential donors is expanding. Now it's a matter of letting those people who have recovered know that they have an opportunity to help other people by donating their plasma to this process. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention what Tom Hanks said just a few days ago after he donated his plasma to help others. He said it was as easy as taking a nap. And if you can take a nap and help save someone else's life, I think that's a great thing.
Okay, let's just get into a little bit more detail. Are all antibodies, if I have an immune response after I've had COVID-19, are the antibodies that I create the same as the antibodies that you create? Are all antibodies kind of created equally? They're obviously targeting sites of weakness on the virus, but are there different antibodies that work differently and more effectively and some less so?
Okay, so that's a very sophisticated question, and exactly the question we need to be asking when we look at antibody levels in people that have recovered from COVID infection. And by way of background, there is this concept of immunity certificates or passports, so that if a person has antibodies in their bloodstream, the thinking is that they may be protected against future infection and that they may be, quote unquote, safe to go back into an environment where COVID, the virus, may be present. The problem is the one that you're alluding to, which is that while we can measure antibodies in the bloodstream, we don't know that all of those antibodies are actually neutralizing the virus. And that is the reason we need to be careful about rushing to take an antibody test and then make some determination about individual risk. We just need to learn more about the immune response to this virus. We also don't know how long these antibodies will last. You know, there are a number of other coronaviruses that we are all exposed to, have been throughout our lives, that circulate every day, and we continually get infected by those viruses. So it is possible for related coronaviruses to infect people more than once in their lifetime, and it certainly could be the case with this virus. So I think these antibody tests are really important for understanding immunology and herd immunity and epidemiology, but I would say it's a bit early to be saying that we can use an individual's test to determine their risk for future infection.
Rajeev, you can see the whole landscape, the environment for vaccines out there. Who would you like to partner with? And would it necessarily be a US company or a chain of US companies? Could it be Chinese companies, Japanese companies?
I wouldn't want to get ahead of ourselves and say that we're going to restrict to a certain geography. The great thing about what is happening in science and the industry right now is that there are many, many efforts underway, so that we have lots of what some might call shots on goal. So we have the opportunity here to make ourselves available for multiple potential partners, and then we can get ready. And then once we see what looks promising, then we can act and move to bring that manufacturing into our facility. But I think actually this raises another important concept, which is that we need to have a lot of different companies and countries manufacturing vaccine, because we want to avoid a situation where any country decides that they're going to keep all the vaccine they make inside their borders, because that obviously would not be the best thing for global health. And we're in this unique position right now where nobody knows which companies are going to be successful. Nobody knows which countries are going to have the successful vaccines. So in my view, this is exactly the right time for us to reach a grand agreement, if you will, that no matter where the vaccine is developed and produced, if it's safe and effective, that we should give access to that vaccine to the entire world.